Welcome to Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name is Patrick and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show where we discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. We're going to be going through an episode of Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, and connecting it to teachings in the Bible. I'm going to be continuing studying 1,000-Year Blood War until the conclusion of the series/season. But I know there's a season break coming up, and so when that season break happens, I'll go in a different direction. It could be anything from other anime, comic books, or movies. Now, the name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So this episode is about the episode in Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War entitled The Battle. And so the first half of this episode is of Unohana and Zaraki dealing with both being Kenpachi. And so we get glimpses to Unohana and Kenpachi Zaraki's first meeting together. And during this, Unohana relays through the flashback that she's like, this is the one who will in fact be the heir of Kenpachi. And so with the translations, it's always kind of interesting, and it's always very confusing. Like, I actually, normally you're not supposed to do this, but I went to Reddit to kind of see what discussion is about especially with this episode having just come out, of what does Kenpachi mean. They always say it's the strongest Soul Reaper, but Yamamoto, when he fought Aizen, said that there had been no Soul Reaper born in over 1,000 years. I think it's even 2,000 years stronger than him, and that Aizen even admits that if it was a straight up fight, he'd probably lose. That's why Aizen cheated. But that's Aizen for you. So it's a little crazy to try and figure out who actually is more powerful. Was it Yamamoto, or was it Kenpachi? Was it Unohana? I mean, who knows? But anyways, this could go on forever discussing this alone. But one of the things I love about this is, once again, the animation is fantastic, and the sword fights and everything that's going on is really great. And so, being this is a battle to the death, there is a lot of blood in it. So this episode is not for the squeamish. Now, I mean, there are certainly worse animes when it comes to that, but if you're used to a certain level of blood and death and things like that in Bleach, this one is different, and that's really the way that it is for this whole story of 1,000-Year Blood War. Even from the get-go, like, watching the first couple episodes, I'm like, wow, this feels a lot different than Bleach in the past. But things have changed, but this is the thing, is that everything that's been going on in Bleach has been leading up to this. So that's why there's a lot at stake. That's why they're not censoring the way that they used to, things like that. And the second part of the episode is of Renji and Ichigo going to Oetsu to have their Zanpakuto rebuilt. And so during the beginning of this, Oetsu points out that Renji and Ichigo, they're no fun. Now, Khan's having a great time there, but Oetsu points out that Renji and Ichigo just, they don't know how to loosen up, and they're stiff, and things like that. And so Renji and Ichigo do their best, but they're not, and especially Ichigo is really not happy about giving into Oetsu's teasing and things like that. And so then Oetsu takes them to where they truly need to go to have their Zanpakuto restored and rebuilt, and that Oetsu is the only one who can do it. And so first that they have to do is they have to fight the Asuichi. And these are the spirits, per se, of the Zanpakuto. And so they fight them, and by the end of the episode, we find out that Renji has passed because he is a true Soul Reaper, and so Oetsu will, in fact, rebuild Renji's Zanpakuto. But Ichigo failed, and so Oetsu kicks him out. And he says, like, and when Ichigo leaves, he lands at Kurosaki Clinic in Karakura Town, where he's like, you need to learn who you are. And so we're going to find out more about Ichigo in the next episode. But what I really loved about this was that the Asuichi, they said that these are the spirits of the Zanpakuto, and they are angry with you on how you use them. Like it zooms in on one of the Asuichi's faces, and it's crying, and so it's tears of anger, things like that. And so it's one of those things where it is fascinating on how the spirit and the swords are alive and those kind of things. And so the Zanpakuto are angry for them for how they have treated them. And so in this, we get the idea of, how do you care for your weapon, those kind of things. So anyway, those are the things that I found interesting in this episode. It's very battle heavy in the front end, and then the second is the fun, kind of more lighthearted part of the episode. And so for me, the biblical theme of this episode comes from 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 9, and this is what it says. When they had crossed, this is referring to Elijah and Elisha, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I'm taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. In this, we get the passing of the Kenpachi title from Unohana to Zaraki. And one of the things that I find most fascinating, and I can go on and on about the battle, like it's really cool. One of the fun things that I loved about the battle was, Unohana said that she learned all of those great healing techniques so that she could continue battle. Like, so she would fight people and then heal them, and so that they could continue to fight her. And then, during the fight, Unohana points her sword at Kenpachi and says that, the point of the Zaraki is to either be the strongest Soul Reaper or is in fact there to point the sword to the next one. And so she was pointing the sword at Kenpachi. As they're fighting and Kenpachi is regaining his strength and he's removing his inhibitions in the fight, he finally gets to his full potential. And here's a spoiler: one, he kills Unohana, and two, his Zanpakuto starts to speak to him for the very first time. So we have to remind ourselves of just how powerful Kenpachi Zaraki is, that he's a full-fledged captain. He's one of the most powerful captains even before this fight with Unohana. He did not know the name of his Zanpakuto, he did not know how to release his Shikai, and he did not know his Bankai. And so now that his Zanpakuto is speaking to him, that means he's going to be able to release his Shikai for sure. And I'm not going to spoil anymore, but, well, I'll spoil this. He learns his Bankai too. So Unohana knew that there could only be one Kenpachi at a time. And so when she fought Kenpachi Zaraki this time, she knew this was her last fight, and that he would only truly be able to accept who he is until she died and he kills her. And so now we as Christians are called to pass on discipleship to those who are younger than us or newer in the faith than us. But not necessarily, you really shouldn't do it as a duel to the death. That's not exactly the best way to do this. But what Elijah and Elisha did was that Elisha was the one who was selected to follow Elijah as the prophet, the one to teach the kingdom of Israel. And so Elijah and Elisha spent time together. Elisha was able to gain and learn from Elijah's experience and wisdom. And so that's what we are called to do as well. And then on top of it, the reason why I chose this particular verse is that, you know, Elijah says, like, ask anything of me. You know, God's about to take me. He goes up in the fire whirlwind. And so Elisha says, let me inherit a double portion of your spirit. Like, he wants to, you know, he recognizes that Elijah is great, but he also wants to do great things and wants to go even further. Now, does Elisha? No, not really. But, you know, A for effort. But so the same thing goes for the people that I've discipled, that when I've discipled them, you know, my goal as their pastor is to teach them how to serve in ministry to God, in God's kingdom, and to grow God's kingdom. But, you know, I can only do so much, and I'm not perfect. I'm by far not perfect. And so I want the people that I'm sending out to be even better than me. And so I want them to inherit that double portion of spirit that, you know, like I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything, but, you know, I'm a pastor and I'm good at my job. I'm good at my ministry, but I want the people who are learning from me to be even better than me, because I am imperfect and I'm just not who God wants me to be yet. Like, I'm on that path. I'm on the path towards Christian perfection, but I'm not perfect. And so I want the people who do learn from me to be learning what it means to be even better and greater. And so that's the challenge for this episode is, are you passing along your knowledge about Christ to others, or are you holding back? And are you being more like Zaraki, who's holding himself back instead of being as great as he was, as powerful as he was supposed to be? Or are you holding yourself back from doing ministry the way that you're supposed to? All right, so for rating this episode, this one was great. I am actually grateful that Unohana and Zaraki's fight wasn't the full episode. So I think they did that well, because, you know, obviously the main character of the story is Ichigo, and so they have to balance that. And so the fact that they did the full first half of the episode was Unohana and Zaraki's fight, and did great work with it. So I'm gonna this episode is, in fact, for me, is perfect. I think it's a full 5 in my rating system. So it is perfect. It's a great episode, and so I think it's a great one for everyone to watch. All right, so anyone with questions for me about the biblical lessons that I taught about in this episode, or any other form of discussion ranging from anime, comics, Star Wars, whatever it is, anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf or at frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. Also, leave a comment in the comment section if you, and I'll address those comments in the next episode. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Remember that I love you. Most importantly, God loves you. And so go release your Bankai.